Well, friends, good morning. So, let us discuss today fire hazards and prevention. Fire hazards and prevention. So, the fire hazards are workplace hazards that either involve the presence of a flame, increase the probability that an uncontrolled fire will occur, or increase the severity of a fire should one occur. So, fire hazards include flame, sparks, hot objects, flammable chemicals, chemical accelerants, which can increase a fire's rate of spread. Means fire hazards are a broad category. It includes anything which impedes the function of fire protection material or equipment, as well as anything that inhibits fire safe behavior. For instance, an obstruction which impedes safe evacuation and a malfunctioning sprinkler system would both be considered fire hazards. This is because the facility's level of risk factor in both the probability that a fire will occur and the severity of the potential harm that could be caused by a fire if it did occur. So, an item may also be considered a hazard in one context but be seen as non-hazardous in another low risk environment. For example, in occupational environment that require the use of heat or flame, the use of non-fire resistance clothing would be considered hazardous. Minor amounts of flammable material that would be considered acceptable in normal environments becomes unacceptable if placed in an environment that has an ignition source, because the risk created by an individual item is dependent on the environment which it exists within. Fire hazards are typically analyzed from a whole workplace or whole building perspective. So, these risk assessments, which are often legally required, are referred to as fire hazard analysis or fire risk assessments. So, what is fire hazard and fire prevention? So, the term fire hazard refers to not only the causes of fires but also those circumstances which increase the probability of fires occurring or which enable fires to spread and increase the loss. So, the system of fire insurance rating is based on classification of risk, which in turn is based on assessment of fire hazard and loss experience in each class. So, the fire prevention is directed not only at preventing the origin of fires but also at preventing their spreading. So, types of fire hazards you will find: originating hazard, contributory hazard, and hazards arising from construction. Originating hazards are common cause arranged in order to their frequency of occurrences. These are smoking, friction, lighting, chemical action, hot surface, etc. Because there is smoking, there is a potential cause of fire almost everywhere. Discipline control and education of employees will minimize this hazard to a considerable extent. Friction due to hot bearings, misaligned machine parts, poor adjustment of power drives and conveyor, etc. Lighting, fires have been known to originate from direct lightning strike and sparks from one object to another induced nearby lightning strike. Then chemical action, fire can also originate by chemical processes, going out of the control, chemical reacting with others, materials and decomposition of unstable chemicals. Then hot surfaces, the hazard from or due to heat from boilers, furnaces, electric lamps, hot processes, metal igniting flammable liquids, and ordinary combustibles. Sometimes contributory hazards are there. These hazards increase the probability of a fire occurring or which enable or permit fires to spread and increase the loss. Then the mechanical formula for calculating the load is the nature of the combustible materials must be known so that the calorific values per kilogram of such materials can be obtained from calorific value tables. So the weights of the combustible material are multiplied by their respective calorific values. The products so arrived are added and the result is divided by the floor area to arrive at the fire load. Some fire resistance are there. Fire resistance gives the span during which a construction offers resistance to a standard fire. To evaluate fire resistance, constructional hazards, exposure hazards, height, size, silent risk, hazard arising from the goods and miscellaneous hazards can play the lead role. Now a fire hazard analysis is a type of engineering analysis that is designed to describe the risk of fire present in an environment in both qualitative, that is descriptive, and quantitative, that is numeric terms. The fire hazard analysis considers the severity of hazards in the area by evaluating the total risk of hazards in a given area. And a fire hazard analysis can be a risk-based and hazard-based. So the former considers the likelihood of a given scenario occurring, while the hazard-based model is solely concerned with what could happen regardless of probability. So the complexity of a fire hazard assessment can vary significantly. It can be very significant. In very low-risk workplaces, a fire hazard assessment may be conducted by non-experts as part of a general hazard analysis. In contrast, at a high-risk workplace such as industrial facilities, it may be necessary to conduct a formal fire hazard analysis that makes use of sophisticated calculations that requires a great deal of computing power to execute. Fire hazard prevention system is also there, because the term fire hazard refers to not only the cause of fire but also those circumstances which increase the probability of fires occurring. So there are miscellaneous hazards, and the ways to prevent fire in a workplace is most important, because the right fire prevention practice can ensure your building doesn't go up in flames as easily. These tips can not only save lives, but they can also help raise awareness about fire safety and fire protection in your building. First of them is accessible equipment. Make sure all of your fire protection equipment, for example, fire extinguishers, control panels, etc., are very easily accessible. Also, don't block the fire sprinklers or fire alarms with anything such as dust, debris, or paint. You don't want to hinder the functionality of your equipment. Then there is the proper disposal. Discard of any hazardous waste in a metal container that has a lid. Hazardous waste can include anything from oils to chemicals. Even flammable and combustible materials should be properly disposed of in order to prevent fire hazards. Then regular maintenance is required, because schedule regular maintenance services for all of your fire protection equipment to make sure everything is up to code. It's also smart to make sure any machines in your building are properly maintained in order to prevent overheating or sparks created from friction. Then safe storage. If you have chemicals, flammable materials or other hazardous substances in your building, you will want to make sure they are stored in a safe place. Make sure they are in a dry, secure, closed or room that has adequate ventilation. It is also a good idea to keep the fire protection equipment for flammable substance near the storage area just in case. Clean environment is necessary because there are many reasons that you should keep your building neat and tidy. One of the main reasons is because when there is a lot of clutter, especially flammable materials such as paper boxes, etc., then the fire can spread faster. So the clutter could also block exit and make it harder to escape if there is a fire. So to make sure to keep the inside of your building clean and clutter free. Then precautionary measures are required. Fire safety demonstrations can go a long way when it comes to the safety of your building. Make sure to teach building occupants how to react to a fire and how to use a fire extinguisher along with the other fire protection devices that can help to prevent a fire from spreading if one does occur in your building. Building security. Arson is one of the leading causes of building and structure fires. That is why it is so important to invest in building security. Building occupants should know to lock up the building behind them and should know how to report suspicious behavior or people if they see something a little off. Then designated smoking area. There should be a designated smoking area that is a safe distance away from the building. Also make sure to provide ashtrays or other safe options for people to properly extinguish and dispose of their cigarettes. This will help keep your building safe from accidents, fires caused by lit cigarettes. Emergency plans. Emergency and evacuation plans are important to prevent further damages or issues if there is a fire. It is important that if something needs to call for help, they know what to do, how to easily find the building address and what the next step should be. Fire prevention is just as important after a fire has already started because it can reduce the risk of spreading, which can lead to more damages. So adhere to OSHA and NFPA guidelines. Today there are safety standards and regulations put in place to help businesses better prevent fires in workplace. Both OSHA, OSHA and NFPA provides a set of rules and guidelines to ensure fire protection and safety. You will want to make sure that you meet all their requirements to remain up to code and secure, because there are many hazards and those all hazards are supposed to cause the loss or damages to every area of the building. So these fire hazards and preventive methods are most useful to control the fires in any area. Thank you very much.